Sound familiar? One of these days I'm really going to have to learn how to play piano properly. Okay, so I'm going to do something that's wildly different today. This is something I've never done before. And if it works out okay, I might do it a fair bit more. I've come into possession of some, I guess you could call them stems from Pull Me Under by Dream Theater, which is a song that's very dear to my heart. It may have been, it was definitely one of the first Dream Theater songs that I heard. And, you know, it comes from an album that I hold very dear as well, because I like the band lineup at the time. There's been some great keyboard players throughout Dream Theater's history. Kevin Moore, for me, tended to be a little bit more musical and a little bit less in your face. It was less about the crazy solos and more about this amazing ambient bed that he used to provide for the rest of the band. And you hear that a lot in this song, but it's not perfect. The stems I've got aren't perfect. A few of the bits are mixed together, but it does allow you to break things down, listen to the drums, the main parts of the guitar and the bass independently. And you can hear a lot of the vocals without all the clutter as well. So this is really cool. I'm going to basically do a reaction to this. More of a review, really, or a breakdown, I guess, because I've heard the song, obviously, a million times. But I know I'm going to hear some stuff in here I've never heard before, and that's the kind of things I'm going to call out. This isn't going to be a technical analysis of the band because, to be fair, it's beyond me. Dream Theater are one of those bands that, like, if I understood what they were doing, I wouldn't be doing this. So let's see if we can all learn something together about the composition, about the production, and maybe hear a couple of little nuanced parts in the song that a lot of us all really love already that maybe we've never noticed before. So let's dive right in. Okay, already this is tripping me out. Because the thing that's interesting about listening to stems is when you know a song inside out and backwards, you only really know what the mix allows you to hear, right? So the way the engineers mixed it, some things are going to be buried in the mix, some things are going to be out there. And that this little part here, let me unmute it for a second. There we go. Unsolo it. That melodic part through there, I always thought I knew what that sounded like until right this second. Now listen to this it's a whole different synth sound that the majority of the texture and the you know, I guess the body of the sound is buried underneath that heavy bass sound and all of the guitar stuff that's going on. It's so much reverb through here, which I'll show in a second as well. But like, check this out. There's also notes in there I hadn't heard before too. Da, 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 da. I always heard it as da, da, but it's not as da, da, da. I don't know if that's an artifact of the fact that he's using the pitch bend. Oops, hang on. Turn this back on. Yeah, interesting. But yeah, like that's a whole other sound is really sort of way more sort of 70s synth than I imagined. Actually, I think that extra note is actually a delay. You can hear it echoing through there as well. But I just wanted to show you also just how, like if you listen to this sound by itself. there's so much reverb going on there and delay. And then hang on, how's the drum sound? This is so much fun. Listen to that snare drum. That's a big snare reverb. Wow. I mean, it makes sense with the lushness of everything else, but you could say that the toms are relatively dry, but that snare drum has like a gated reverb on it that just is like 3 seconds long. That's so strange. Let's see if it... Wow, it's so compressed too. That's wild. Okay, so let's get into the song a little bit more. Let's see, turn that off. Wow. Oh, spicy chords. And of course, the secondary guitar part goes in that main track as well. That's what I mean. Like there's like drums, guitar, and bass, and then there's incidental parts and vocals all on one track. So we'll see what we can pull out of it anyway. Oh wow, okay. See, that's what I'm talking about. This whole part goes underneath here, but you'd barely notice it because of the other guitar. What does that remind me of? It's like a TV theme or something, or maybe is it a Who song or something? That really is familiar.
Lost in the sky, clouds roll by and I roll with them. Arrows fly, season.
There's some really weird harmonic stuff happening there in that keyboard. Let's see if we can break that down a little bit.
Arrows fly, seas increase and then fall again.
It's funny, you can hear how much, I don't know if it's Kevin lagging behind a little bit or if it's James rushing the beat there. Hang on, let's hear it with drums.
Lost in the sky, clouds roll by and I roll with them. Arrows fly.
That's groove, baby. Like, it's just, like, if you quantized what the keyboard was doing, it would be in time, but you would lose all of that flavor. He's like, it's just the accent is just landing just behind the beat to sort of just drag it along.
Lost in the...
But it's funny because if you listen to James and Kevin at the same time,
Lost in the sky, clouds roll by and I roll with
because you need that sort of pulse.
Arrows fly, seas increase and then fall again.
Really weird. One thing I noticed actually, which was really surprising, being that most of the composition and production stuff that I've ever done has been relatively modern. There's, you know, and home done and stuff like that. You know, what's interesting to me is I tried to set this to a click so I could run a metronome behind it, and I looked up what's the BPM of Pull Me Under, and it was 102 BPM. And no matter what I did, I couldn't line it up, which tells me that these guys probably recorded together at once, which wouldn't surprise me at all, particularly from the era that this was recorded. But also I don't believe they recorded to a click. I think it was just, let's just get in the studio and just play the song and edit it where we need to, and so on and so forth. Because it does sort of move around a little bit. It sounds very organic compared to like modern recordings. Be interesting to do some, I'll take a look at stems from something like a metal song that's far more recent and just see what the differences are, because I feel like you'll find a lot more quantization, a lot more Pro Toolsing. Yeah, but this is super, this is so much fun. This is interesting. Let's have a listen to that bit again.
Lost in the sky, clouds roll by and I roll with them. Arrows fly, seas increase and then fall again. This world is spinning around me. This world is spinning without me, and every day sends future to past. Every breath leaves me one last to my last.
Wow. That's some tight picking. Wow. It's funny, I thought there was so much more melody happening in the guitar there, but what's going on here then?
Watch the spell falling, gives no meaning to it all. Not today, not yet tomorrow, then some other day.
I might just listen there where the vocals are by themselves. I want to hear what sort of effects and stuff are on.
The spell falling gives no.
So there's double tracking clearly.
The spell falling gives no meaning to it all. Not today, not yet tomorrow, then some.
You can hear right before the band comes in, you can hear the timing of different tracks slightly out, so you can hear the double tracks a little bit. Oh my god, what's going on here?
The spell falling gives no.
You can hear like a gives popping in there, so maybe give like the double tracks come in when the band kicks in, but it's just him by himself for just that quiet part. But yeah, you can hear there's a lot of reverb on his voice.
Watch the spell falling gives no meaning to it.
Or is that a tail from the band?
The spell falling gives no meaning to it all. Not.
Yeah, actually no. I think that's the reverb tail from the band ending, but from here over
Falling gives.
there's a little bit of reverb there, but actually not as much as I thought they'd be.
Falling gives no meaning to it all. Not today. Not.
Man, that's tight. Let's listen to that with John Mayung in there as well.
Takes our lives for one, and then my only father son that shows I that of my love him, I am not afraid.
Interesting. Now, I might just solo the drums. Curious to see what, if anything, Portnoy's doing that's unusual there. Okay, it's just a straight rock groove pretty much.
Love him, I am not afraid.
Okay, this is going to be great. Hang on. Let's listen to just John Petrucci on his own. And that's why he's the GOAT, man. It's so awesome. Wow, those little like just trill bits. You know? And that's so cool. Now let's see what John Myung's doing beside that. So it's just a slightly more simplified version. But it's funny though, because in context of the whole mix, I've never noticed that modulation happening through there, like harmonically. And now hearing it in context, there's so much more depth there than I had before. More than anything, you just sort of got this feeling of sort of going up and down a little bit, up and down a little bit. Just kind of like it just sort of kept you off your equilibrium a little bit. But when you hear what's going on underneath, like listen to it in context again, you'll know what I mean. You don't really hear those individual guitar licks or anything. You just hear, you get this overwhelming sort of sensation of going up and down waves, you know?
No meaning to it all, not today, not yet tomorrow, then some other day. I'll take 7 legs for one, and then my only for sadness is a dead of my love, and I am not afraid. This world is spinning around me, the whole world keeps spinning around me, and all life is future to past. Every breath leaves me one less to my last.
That's just absolutely brilliant. I never noticed it before, because you never dive this deep into it unless you want to learn how to play the song, which I've never gotten around to. But just that part through there where it's sort of it's building tension, and then it releases a little bit, and then it builds tension a little bit higher, and then it releases a little bit, and it builds tension a little bit higher, and it just keeps doing that through this whole part from about here.
And all life is future to past. Every breath leaves me one less to my last.
Okay, I think we need to hear that bit by itself. That's cool. I mean, it's interesting. You can hear sort of where all of the parts come in, like all the different ideas end to end. But, you know, another thing to note as well is like all the double tracking. You can hear when you isolate the track, you can hear there's 2 guitar parts played relatively in unison. Not quite perfectly, but I think that's part of the charm, because in the mix, it sort of sounds bigger and fatter. You don't want it to be exact. Otherwise, it'll just cancel itself out and you'll just have a single guitar sound, essentially. Interesting. Now, what's going on here? Okay. That's just a really creatively written little interlude. It's so nice. Anything interesting in drums? Cool. All right. Let's go from here.
Hold me under, hold me under, hold me under, I'm not afraid.
Wow, a lot of vocals going in there. Just see if you can just listen to this. This is a great tip for if you're ever mixing a vocalist or recording a vocalist for mixing. And if you really want that fat vocal sound, like listen to it in context of the whole mix. You can hear there's a fat vocal sound.
Hold me under, hold me under, hold me under, I'm not afraid.
So what you're hearing there is probably 3 takes of the main vocal. You've got some sort of descant harmony parts as well. Let's listen to it by itself, and you can sort of probably pick them out a little bit better.
Pull me under, pull me under, pull me under, I'm not afraid.
Yeah, there's definitely like, there's that, plus there's also a higher part.
Pull me under, pull me under, pull me under, I'm not afraid.
I have no idea if I was in key, then I can't hear myself through this mic.
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. All that I feel is honor and spite.
So even though that comes back to a single vocal, it's actually still double tracked.
All that I feel is honor and spite.
What gives it away, and I always say this with the double tracking, is you can't always time those hard consonants at the start of each line the same. And so as you can sing it as tightly as you can pitch-wise, but you'll always get that little at the start, you know what I mean? It's just like these little false starts, and that's how you can hear mostly if it's double tracks.
All that I feel is honor and spite. All I can ask to set right.
Labree's tones, interesting tone, particularly up high. It gets sort of like up in here, like sort of the back of his nasal cavity. And I guess that allows him to project and probably hit higher notes.
Ask to set right.
There's that 80th synth again. It sounds like the start of a TV show. I can't figure out what it is.
All that I feel is right. Dust fills my eyes. Clouds roll by and the road.
Hang on, how does that match up with the guitar there? Such a crazy guitar, clean sound. I'm not sure. This was back in 1992. I know that Petrucci now uses piezo pickups, piezo, whatever, which are basically like an electrostatic, from the way I understand it, pickup. That is, rather than using these electromagnets essentially here and here to pick up the sound, there's little piezo transducers in each of the saddles on the bridge, which is kind of almost getting an acoustic sound from the guitar. So it's like you're basically picking up the sound of the guitar vibrating rather than the electromagnetic flux of the string oscillating in a magnetic field. That's a really complicated way of explaining how guitars work. Just so that you understand, it gives you a cleaner, richer wood of the body of the guitar kind of sound, much like an acoustic, and you can emulate an acoustic guitar like that to a degree. It never sounds real, like a real acoustic, but it sounds like a live approximation of an acoustic guitar, because a lot of times you'll plug an acoustic in when you're playing live anyway, and it never sounds like an acoustic guitar either. So you sort of get a good approximation, but that bell-like clean sound that he's got there, it could be a single coil pickup. But to me, it sounds like it's got that organic nature of like an actual physical, like an acoustic style pickup, you know.
All is spinning inside me. The whole world is spinning inside of me. Every day since future to past, every step brings me closer to my last.
feel like there's more going on there. Let's have a look at the guitars. And there's the double tracking, baby. You can't harmonize. You can't harmonize like that with yourself by yourself. But you can hear it, especially in this fast picking. Because as in time as that is, and it's still a little bit out, which gives you it gives you that fatness in the overall mix. Like if you listen to that in context. They're a little late coming in there. Not that I am anyone to judge, but dare I say there's now more vocals in there. Let me have a listen. Hold me under, hold me under, hold me under, not afraid. I'm also not convinced that that's all James LaBrie. I think they might have thrown some extra voices in there, which is not uncommon at all. That's 100% the standard, particularly back in these days. A lot of times they'd bring session guys in to just like fill up the backgrounds, or do harmonies. I'd imagine it's not the case in this case, but a lot of times singers may be a great singer, but they're not very practiced harmonizers. Because there is a knack to it. Coming up with harmonies for parts, like a 3-part harmony, is second nature to someone who sings in a choir or in a cappella group or something like that. But for a rock and roll singer who may have only ever had to figure out how to sing a third above someone else or whatever, to come up with articulated parts that complement each other is not easy. So a lot of times they'd bring in some hired guns to just thicken out the vocal tracks. I don't think that's the case here, but there is some textural differences in some of the voices I'm hearing popping out, but it could just be, it just sounds different, him singing a little bit lower, a little bit higher. Hold me under, hold me under, hold me under, I'm not afraid. Living my life too much in the sun. It's really interesting listening to this broken down. Like as far as like mixes and stuff go, I've only ever really had the opportunity to really analyze my own and critique my own. And there's a lot of things that you sort of pick up that are things you may in the past have struggled with. Like, for example, when you want something to have a lot of impact, right? This part here, for example, after the vocal ends. It's those dun 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 sort of parts. You kind of feel like you have to hit that hard on every instrument. But if you listen to the strings there, there's nothing there. Nah, nah, nah. It's weak as. But you couple that with your drums, and that kick drum adds percussion to the entire sonic frequency. So now the keyboard sounds like it's punchy, right? And the biggest culprits for utilizing that is definitely the bass guitar. You'll often hear a bass guitar playing really intricate parts, but then when you take the drums out, you realize they're only playing half the notes, a lot of times, because they sort of, your impression of hearing that thump of the kick drum and the snare, it sort of mentally creates notes that aren't there a lot of times in the bass. Because you've got to understand the bass is it's a trickier instrument to articulate. So like I said before, where Petrucci is playing those really articulated parts with those little trills and things like that, most of what John Myung's doing when he's doubling him is supporting those notes, but he's not getting to every single note. He's only playing the core root notes, some of the little articulations, but not all of them, because sometimes it's just physically not possible. The frets on a bass are much further apart. The action's not as low. There's a lot more dexterity involved in just producing a note on a bass. So, but what happens is when you layer the kick drum and the snare and the bass guitar and the main guitars offering a lot of that sort of nuance at the top end, you hear notes in the bass that aren't being played because your brain creates them as a result of the sum of all of the parts. It's really interesting. Right, now listen to it with the guitar. See what I mean? Now it's like this big moment. It's this dun dun dun. But really, if you listen to each part on its own, it's not all that impressive. You know, but it all comes down to everything working in harmony. Now it's a thing, you know? I love that. I love hearing that, because sometimes you get caught up in things like that where you're like, oh, the guitar just isn't hitting that hard enough, or the bass and the guitar aren't playing the exact same notes or whatever. But when you put it in the context of a mix, you often don't need them to. You need them to be doing their part in the frequency spectrum to make the overall sound the way you want it to. And that's a lesson.
Living my life too much in the sun. Only until you're wasted.
It's a perfect example of using a delay to add pace to a slow sound, right? So if you listen to when he comes in, there's an implied rhythm to that now, right? Because you're hearing the delay hit every once in a while, because it peters off. The feedback goes for a few beats, but it slowly gets quieter. So you get da 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 da. But because you hear that every once in a while, in your head you're hearing a pulse there that's like bop 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 bop. It's subconscious, but it's definitely there. That's a really nice little bass lick there. Hang on. Let's take a look at that. Off. Had no idea. Wow. Okay, so for those of you who aren't guitarists, which I assume most of you are, let's be honest, what he's doing there, I haven't got a bass plugged in, but he's doing harmonics. So I don't know what he's playing, but let me just turn that on. What was he playing actually? Okay, so let me turn this back on. So he's doing like a... So that's what a harmonic is, right? It sounds more intense on an electric guitar. Let me turn this down. Got a noise gate on. So he's essentially doing that, but on bass. So what that is when you don't press the string down. If you press the string down, you get a note, right? In this case, A. Right? But if you lightly just touch the string to deaden it and then pick it and then take your finger off, you get a harmonic, and it gives you a different harmonic texture, right? So you can be like you can do like whole, you know, so that's basically what he's doing, and it's just a beautiful choice. And he's obviously and he's doing a little bit of sort of like a little bit of chord plucking sort of stuff before he comes into that, but then he's like, I'm not sure what notes he's playing. Yeah, but it's just like a cool little device that didn't need to be there, and it's there because he's a genius. Okay, so harmonic, another harmonic, another harmonic. So cool. Now let's see what oh, cool. So he's doing the harmonic under the notes where Patrici is letting the notes ring. So it'll be like, when he lets those notes ring, you hear like a underneath from the bass, and it just makes it sound kind of angelic and harp-like, right? Very cool. Such a big snare drum. Hang on, this deserves a little bit more scrutiny. Now what's John playing? So that's what I was saying before. So in this case, John Mayong is just providing a bed of support that's more of like a more like a rhythmic, percussive sort of thing. He's just playing the root notes of what John's playing, John Patricia's playing. That's so goddamn cool. All right. Curious.
Living my life to matching the sun, only until you're wasted.
Oh, don't know what that was at the end there. It just must be a tail end of the synth sound. Interesting.
Only until you're wasted.
Someone help me out. There's a Who song that sounds like that, right? It's like maybe who are you? I don't know. It's got to be something, but there's... Sorry. What's going on there? That's always bothered me. Just a slide. Okay. So that's really interesting there. The rhythmic syncopation right there is really supplied by Kevin on the keyboards. That's interesting too. Okay, so what you're hearing there is some reverse reverbs. So what they've done is they've taken... It's really hard to hear because I can't isolate the vocal, but either they've taken the reverb from the vocal track and sort of flipped it so that it sort of comes in backwards. So you get that like that. Or they've just reversed the vocal track. I don't know, it's tricky. Yeah, that whole part's backwards. I've never really knew what the lyrics were there, and I don't think there are any because I think that's a reverse vocal. Okay, so that's... I remember where I was the first time I heard this song. I was sitting in the car with my friend Marshall, who at the time we both co-managed a recording studio. And he was introducing me to Dream Theater, and we were hearing this song, and then the song just cuts off at the end. And it was... The reason we're listening to the song is there was this... In Sydney, around that sort of time, which would have been, I don't know, 2003, 4, or something like that, a spate of stores opened up in Sydney where it was called $10 CDs, and you'd go in there and they just had everything that was just like entire catalogs of bands that you've forgotten about, you know. And Dream Theater's catalog up to that point was all in there for $10 each. And so we found this place and we'd gone in and bought it and whatever. And he said, you got to hear Images and Words. And he put it in and started playing this song, and I was getting into it. And then the song is truncated, it just ends. And I looked at him like, oh, you got ripped off with your $10 CD. And he's like, no, that's just how it is. It just ends like that. But what's interesting is, to me, it always sounds like they literally just chopped the tape right there. But they didn't. There's actually, in this track, a slight tail, which is, you know, like, I don't know how well you guys can see it here. Let me see if I can zoom in on this track. See that right there? If you can see those little tails there, that happens after everyone else stops playing. So when you hear the music stop, it's keyboard reverb that goes right to the end, which is funny because, yeah, I never, unless the other song, does it start straight away? When the song is mastered into the album, maybe they did chop that off. I'm not sure. I'd have to listen to it. But it's funny because everyone else stops playing, and then yeah. Let me show you what it would sound like if they chopped that off. It would sound like this, which sounds fake and artificial, right? If you have that little reverb hit afterwards, then it sort of sonically makes sense. Wow, okay. That was really interesting. Stick around after this and I'll do a bit of a summary. Hey guys, this video is made possible by Enchroma. 1 in 6 guys and 1 in 200 women are colorblind. If it happens to be you, there's something you can do about it. Click the link in the description. It'll take you to Enchroma's website where you can get a free eye test. And while you're there, maybe pick up some corrective lenses. They've got styles to suit everybody and a 60-day money-back guarantee. So you got really nothing to lose. And while you're there, use the code CHAOS in checkout to get 10% off. Tell them Primal Chaos sent you. Okay, so if you've stuck around this long, we're at the 47-minute mark. You're clearly a Dream Theater fan, or you're a fan of this song. So I hope you got something out of that as far as hearing things in there you've never heard before, because I know I did. That was really cool. I tried to pick out anything that was a little bit different or unusual. So hopefully I didn't leave anything on the table that you wanted to hear, like soloed, but didn't get a chance. So what did I take from this? Well, this was a single for Dream Theater as far as I can recall. And it seems every bit of a single through the prism of what Dream Theater would do if they had to make a single. And that is, there's so much repetition. There's only a few sort of key parts in there. There's little interludes and things in between, but there's a lot of repetition. I mean, the first verse and the second verse are very different, right? So you've got like the, let's see where we are. I guess it's here. Nope. Wow, it's a really long intro, isn't it? Slow burn to the vocal. And I roll with them. But then the second verse, which I guess comes in after this gap here. You got like a double tone feel. But there's so many parts that are like, obviously the chorus repeats so much more than you would expect from a Dream Theater song. This world is spinning around me. The whole world keeps. The pre-chorus is a theme that's repeated. You know, so what I'm getting at is, it's like, if somebody got a Dream Theater song and chopped it up and tried to make it into a radio friendly version of a Dream Theater song, and I don't mean that as in any way to mean like to seem diminishing or anything like that. I just wouldn't be surprised if, you know, one of the intentions was to write a song that they could play on the radio, because back then songs like this would play on the radio, you know. In fact, they still do. If you go to America and tune into any of the rock stations, you hear Dream Theater all the time. But it's, you know, it's just more of a standardized format. Like, don't get me wrong, the song is still like 8 minutes long or whatever it is. But there's this typical traditional verse, chorus aesthetic going on, but with a lot of little intricate parts in between to sort of shake that feeling, if that makes sense. And, you know, like that, the beauty of what I see here is that, as simple as this song might be arrangement wise for a Dream Theater song, everybody still has their moments to add in the little flares that make them some of the best rock players in the world, you know. And I mean, this was a long time ago too, you know. They've all actually come a long way since this time as well. But yeah, that's the main takeaway I get from this, because I've never really critically listened to the song before. It never occurred to me how often things repeat. And each one of those parts has a strong, distinct melodic hook that sort of you remember and you want to sing along to. In fact, I was trying to prevent myself from doing that the whole time. But this was a really interesting journey. Let me know in the comments if you want to see more of these, because really it's one of those things where it's a little bit different, and I don't know whether the format's going to translate to the vast majority of viewers. But if you're a fan of Dream Theater and you sat through this, I appreciate you. This was a test run. Let me know in the comments what you think, and if you've got any tips. I guess one of the things I could do is do it less of a reaction, so it wouldn't be as long, you know, but I could sort of show you key parts that I've like learned prior, you know, or experienced prior. I can sort of chop out some bits and say, here's some stuff you should listen to because you probably haven't heard it this way before. And that way we could probably get to a format of maybe 20 minutes again. That might be a good idea. Or maybe this is the kind of thing that would be better served for like lives. I could go live and spend an hour with you guys going over a song in its parts, and, you know, we can all chat about it and stuff like that. I just don't know that I've got enough engagement yet to make lives worthwhile. So maybe I'm going to do a test run. I'm going to wait till I got some time. I'll do a test run and see how we go with this sort of format, because I think this would probably work better than just reactions, you know. But there you go. Anyway, feel like I brightened your day. I'd love it if you bought me a coffee. All of these get demonetized, so it helps keep me motivated to do more. There's a link in the description. Like, follow, share, subscribe, all of that. Ring the bell. School's back in, sucker. And thanks again. If you made it this far, you get 10 points. In the Primal Chaos checklist, you've made the team, right? So thanks a lot, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.